Okay, we're going to step through this. I've got a class called person, and I've got a main method. The main method is where my application starts. So as soon as I start debugging, we're going to hit this line right here. The first thing that we're going to do is instantiate a new person, and we're going to make a variable called p1. The type of that p1 variable is person, which means this p1 is going to have the structure of this class, which means that this p1 is going to have a name. So down here we can say p1.name. We can say p1.name because p1, once again, is a person. So as we instantiate this person class, we're going to feed in this string, which is going to map to this right here, and then we're going to set this.name equal to name. So let's step through this. Okay, first thing, we're going to say p1 is equal to new person. So let's step into that. We're going to call the constructor on the person class. Once again, this is the constructor because this has the same name as the class. And that means that it mapped it because we're creating a new person and we have a string here. So it recognized that we have a constructor that takes a string. So the string that's being passed in there is Brandon. If we look at this right here, the value of this name is Brandon. Okay. Now this .Brandon, this represents the actual instance that you're creating. So if I look at this name right here, the field on the person class is still null. So as I assign this .name equal to the incoming name, I can now see that that's now Brandon. And I can verify over here that this one is now Brandon as well. And now if I print out system.printout, I'm in the constructor, this.name is this.name, I'm going to see that this.name is Brandon for this instance of person. This.name is specific to this instance of person. This instance of person right here, P1. P1, whenever we went into this constructor, this is now referencing P1 basically. It's the P1 instance of the person. Okay, so if we step out, keep going, we're going to say the name of P1 is P1.name. And so P1, once again, is a person. So P1 has a name field on it, has a name property on it. So we can say P1, if we look at what that object looks like, you can see it has a name field on it, and that name is Brandon. So right here it says the name of P1 is Brandon. So as we move on, we're going to do the exact same thing, except for this time we're going to create a person that is P2. Once again, just like P1, P2 is also a person. We know that it's a person because this is the type of the variable. Just like if you was doing string or int, this P2 variable is a type of person. We create an instance here by saying new person, and instead of feeding in Brandon this time, we're going to feed in Alex. So this Alex right here is going to be input as this parameter for the constructor. So if we step in, you can see name here is now Alex because we're creating a new instance of person. And once again, before I set this.name, which is null right now because it hasn't been initialized to anything, it's just null, which is the default for a string because this hasn't been set to anything yet. But this one, the incoming one, is a string of Alex. So we're going to set this.name equal to Alex. And you can see that happen whenever we F6 that Alex is set right there. So now this.name is set to Alex. This now represents P2 because P2 is the one that we're constructing right now. This right here is invoking this constructor, and this happens to be pointing to the instance of P2. So now we're going to say system.out.println and person constructor, this.name is, and it's going to be Alex. And you can see that there. So now if we step out of this, keep on going, we're going to say system.out.println, the name of P2 is P2.name. So P2, like I said, is a type of person. This is the type. And person happens to have a string field on it, and it's public, so we can access it from out here. P2 has a name, and that name is Alex. Because P2, Alex was provided as the name for P2, which means that the name of P2 is Alex.